Welcome to the Nuts and Bolts of Real Estate podcast. My name is Joe Bauer, and I'm here with my co-host, Julie Clark. Julie, how you doing today?
You know what, Joe? I am full of energy, and I am super stoked today, not only to be seeing your beautiful face again, but we have Jason Nickel of Lead Sherpa back with us today that I'm excited about. Let everybody get reintroduced to Jason and Lead Sherpa, who's been on our show in the past, but it's been a while. But I have something that I'm going to tell you, Joe, that's going to shock you. Although we do need to hear about you told me you had a van thing. I don't know if we have time for that today, but I'm going to shock you. You are going to this is all these years, people, of Joe wearing off on me. I started, you're going to be shocked. About a week ago, I started a metabolism flush cleanse thing.
Whoa.
And it is basically just eating healthy off a menu, right? Changing my diet. And literally, I'm telling you, it's been a week, massive changes already. Like I can tell and see, I've lost 5 pounds in a week.
Wow.
Just from eating. I'm telling you guys, if you guys want the menu that I have, it worked for all you ladies out there that are, around 50. I'm telling you, you would be shocked. I'll tell you more about it, but there's after 15 years, Joe Bauer's finally worn off on me to start eating better. So, yep, there you go. Lots of, it's cracking me up. I thought you'd get a good laugh out of that.
Great work.
Yeah.
I can feel the energy coming through the Zoom.
Right? There you go. Yeah. There you go. Well, what happened? Sorry, guys, we're going to take a quick note. Joe had something happen with the van. What happened?
So I'll just do a little teaser. So we were driving down the road and we had an alert pop up on our van that said we have 10 starts remaining before the van's going to shut down on us. Oh, and the night before it was -20 and we couldn't get it started. And so there was all this drama. But if anybody wants to see, I did a full video on it. So if you go to YouTube/The Fantastic Life, you can see that whole video rather than sharing this long story.
Drop it in the stuff below there.
Will do.
Everybody can have a laugh and check out van life. Right on. Well, good stuff. That's funny. Well, today, like I said, we've got Jason Nickel of Lead Sherpa. They're based I think you're out of Denver, Colorado. Is that right, Jason?
Yep.
Reading right off their website because I like to do that. It says Lead Sherpa is the original compliant messaging system for real estate pros. It's an SMS and skip tracing platform created specifically for real estate investors by real estate investors. So if you want to learn how to text compliantly and have a bunch of kick-ass tools that go along to make your life easy and get into the modern world of marketing, definitely you want to be paying attention today as we reintroduce you to Jason. He was back on our show, I think we just said back in January of 2020. So it's been a while. Episode 100. So there's something special. So Jason, welcome back to the Nuts and Bolts of Real Estate Investing.
Thank you both for having me.
Sure. Well, cool. Well, let's just jump straight into it. Joe, can you drop, we'll drop our first show with Jason down below this one as well. Yeah.
Yep, definitely. It's already there. Well, it will be there when the show releases, but yeah, I've got it already.
And since we've covered and got to know you before, and we don't want to waste all our time rehashing stuff though, Jason, Joe, why don't you just ask him our first question and we'll get a brief summary of who you are, Jason, and what you're all about and all that jazz.
Yeah, that's basically the question right there, Jason. Just a brief summary of how you got into this business and maybe a little bit before that would be awesome.
Yeah. So the high level, I guess, would be I moved out to Denver after college. I have a fine arts degree focused on graphic design and digital arts. Did that for a few years. Started my own business, freelancing after working as a senior designer for a couple of different companies. Realized after a bit of time that wasn't really going to give me the freedom that we're all looking for, pay the bills in the way that I, wanted it to actually perform for me, and so I'd always had kind of a vague interest in real estate. And so, one thing led to another, and I did a couple of deals and eventually moved away from design and really focused on real estate full time. And that's when I started to run into the same issues that all of us investors face over time, which is really just how to get those leads. It's the lifeblood of our business, of any investor's business, right? So, did the typical direct mail thing for a while, and it worked, pretty well for, just starting out. We did a respectable amount of business, I would say. Did some masterminds that was extremely helpful. Met some amazing people, networked with people across the country, so that was very helpful too. But always also had an interest in using technology to solve issues for my businesses, right? So for all of the businesses that I've had or created and still have over time, right? So somehow I got turned on to the idea of compliant text messaging. I don't even really remember exactly what it was. I think it might have been, the idea may have come to me through seeing how these political campaigns were doing it in a compliant, manual way, right? And so consulted with a couple attorneys and got a pretty good idea about what I wanted to do and whether or not it was going to be legal, TCPA, Telephone Consumer Protection Act, legal or compliant. And so from there, built a little MVP, or the minimum viable product for myself. Let me take a step back. The impetus behind it was, you send out a couple $15,000-$20,000 direct mail campaigns in a row and get a lackluster response, and you realize pretty quickly that that's not going to be sustainable over time, right?
Yeah.
It like I said, that direct mail channel, among others, certainly worked at times for me, and it worked well, really, and it got me to where I was up to that point. But anyway, decided on maybe spending a chunk of that money that I was putting towards direct mail and some of these other channels, and just said, all right, I'm going to look at hiring a developer, use that or look at that really as a marketing cost, as a marketing expense, and just see what I can come up with. And so found, through a mutual friend, somebody who fit the bill, at least at that time they did, and came up with the idea. I kind of laid it out for them, and we, one thing led to another, and I started using it, and it didn't work. Didn't work really for me at all. And so I had this, this MVP thing that I had created that I didn't really know what to do with next. And so I let a couple people use it, and it worked okay at first. And then I just kind of shelved it for a bit. And then one of my buddies came back to me a couple months later, and he said, hey, I've probably generated in the last 60 days, like $200,000-$300,000 worth of income or assignment fees or, profits. And I've only put in a couple $1,000 to this thing. And he said, it's working pretty amazing. And so I looked at what I was doing again and realized that the data that I was using wasn't very good. And so that was the problem. And so, you put trash data into a system like this, you're going to get trash results out. And so figured out, from there that was my first problem. And almost immediately I got my first deal, which from this system, that more than tripled, I think it was, if I remember correctly. This is like 4 years ago now, what I'd put into the system up to that point in development costs. And so it was immediate payback and then some. And decided to go consult with the attorneys again to make sure that, if this idea was in fact valid or legitimate, let's go ahead and push it out to the world and see if we can help other people experience the same results that I and a couple other people that I had let use it had experienced. And so from there, it just grew very rapidly. We were the first to market with the idea and executed pretty well on it. And I guess over time brings us to where we're at today.
Nice. Good story. I'm curious to know, what was the data that was crap that you used that didn't work? And what was the data you changed to when you first got that first movement forward there? What was it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there are all kinds of different phone number data companies out there that offer this property data with a phone number attached to it, along with the property owner name. And, I was getting, 90%, 95%, like, who is this? Or take me off your list. I don't own that property anymore. I don't remember what company it was. I was going for the cheapest.
The skip tracing portion of the data. When you say data, it wasn't necessarily the list you pulled. It was the skip tracing.
Correct.
Information. You guys get that? I want everybody in our audience to understand the distinction of what we're talking about. It's not like he pulled a probate list that didn't work or some sort of delinquent list that didn't work or whatever. He's talking about what didn't work was his skip tracing data was crap. And I don't think people actually realize that if they, unless they get into it here, that how important that is, right? Just to have good info. Okay, good stuff.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. It was trash skip trace data. I was trying to save money, and I realized I was actually losing out on so many deals that I was actually wasting a lot of money trying to, I was stepping over dollars to pick up pennies, really.
Gotcha. Exactly. Good stuff. Well, let's jump into it further because it's very interesting stuff. So since the last time we talked to you, I'm just going to say from your perspective, has there been changes in the way that investors, so you probably work with a lot of big investors, has there been a way that they've changed their lead generation since we last spoke? Like people are doing more texting today, less direct mail, more Google AdWords, all that stuff. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I would say texting, just like we've always recommended it be, is just one tool in the toolbox, right? So I would say people have probably pulled back from texting since the last time we spoke. It used to be the Wild West, and now, we had a bunch of copycats come in. There's been regulation changes, and we'll talk about that maybe in a little bit because there have been some significant changes that I think people should be aware of. But today texting really, for people who are doing it the right way, is, as far as we can tell and as far as we know from the big investors that we still work with, is definitely still a tool in their toolbox. But people are using still direct mail, but more what's really working for people if done right is TV. So television ads is working really, really well for some of the top investors that we're connected with.
Interesting. So what you think that people backed off of marketing or texting a little bit? Are they still, we hear people still doing a lot of texting. Is it because it got complicated or oversaturated?
It's a very low barrier to entry. Anybody can spin up an account, and it definitely saturated markets. And so, and then again, the other services that, like the idea that we came up with, that came into the industry, they weren't as careful about saturating markets as we were. So one of the things that we were very careful about is we actually limited the number of people per market because we didn't want the idea to collapse under its own weight. If you've got 50, 100, 200 people all in Dallas, doing the same thing, hitting the same people, like that's not sustainable. And so, it actually, what we've realized is it did not in fact collapse under its own weight, but it just became less effective.
Yeah. Kind of the same thing with direct mail, right?
Right.
Oversaturation. I imagine that happens with everything, at some point, unless there's some high cost barrier to entry. What about Google AdWords? I see a lot of that.
I think AdWords is still working. Facebook has taken a big hit since Apple, introduced their privacy restrictions, right? So, we all saw what happened with Facebook's market cap once they announced the impact that had, right? And so that's clearly, I would say, had a big impact on its effectiveness. But AdWords is still good if you know what you're doing and have that optimized. Texting absolutely is still good. Cold calling is very, very good as well, right? When done the right way. Texting can work absolutely very well if done the right way too. It's cyclical, so we'll probably talk about this in a minute. But there's been a lot of changes where the regulatory piece of it has been updated in a way to where the carriers now hold the power on what messaging can get through, and that's a dangerous thing, but also it's good if you know how to navigate that, which we do.
Right. Yeah. Are you finding that investors are using one or two lead generation methods, or they're using this omnipresence type of hit them from everywhere, every angle type of thing for success, or is it riches in the niches type of thing?
It's 2 to 3 usually, and people have their favorite one that they'll, go full bore on or full blast on, right? And that's why texting was so popular for a while, because it works so well. is easy again, and it's still very popular. I don't want to sell it short, but it's harder to make 1,000 phone calls in a day than it is to send out 1,000 text messages, right?
Right.
And it takes longer to send out 1,000 postcards than it does to send out 1,000. The turnaround time on a postcard campaign or a letter campaign is exponentially longer than the turnaround time, right? And so, it is a three-pronged attack, so to speak, or a multi-pronged attack, I would say. Never put all your eggs in one basket. And that's what we've always recommended. We've also always said that we see SMS as having a limited lifespan. I've said that since day one, but it's nice now that we understand a little bit of the ambiguity around the regulations that has been there in the past is being lifted, and we're understanding now what the true impact of 10DLC or 10-digit long code that's a protocol I'll briefly discuss here in a minute is having on this marketing approach. And we do see a path forward.
Well, let's jump into that. Let's jump into all the rules and regulations, what's happened in the last, I guess we'll almost say, 2 years or so since we talked to you on that, and where you see that moving forward. Let's
talk about like at a national level, right? So, and then we'll go into specifically like Florida and Washington, where you guys are at. There's some very restrictive laws that have just been passed. So we'll get to that in a minute. But really, at a national level, the biggest thing is the Facebook Supreme Court ruling. I'm sure we probably all heard of this, but what it boils down to is just they decided that the mere capacity to store a list for dialing is not sufficient to make a system an ATDS or a automated telephone dialing system.
Which is a positive, right, for you guys?
It's a positive, right? Yeah. And so the what that meant was the biggest claims that are happening now are pre-recorded call claims rather than like TCPA violation claims, right? So auto dialing claims or litigation went way down, and so attorneys looked at the law and they said, all right, well, ringless voicemail, for example, is by definition a pre-recorded call, right? And so, and we've always said that too. I mean, it's pretty obvious. A ringless voicemail is a pre-recorded call that you're sending to somebody's phone. People will argue, well, it's not going over the phone lines, it's being deposited directly into the voicemail box. Most phones will chirp at least once when you get a ringless voicemail, so like, and I don't know that argument has ever held up. And so anyway, the point is TCPA.
If it walks like a duck, it's a duck.
Yeah. Right. And so those types of cases are now being litigated a lot more because that's where the attorneys see an opportunity, right?
So are we going to alert people here a little ding, ding, ding? If you're using ringless voicemail, you might start thinking twice about that.
I would. I mean, I've never used it. We've always recommended against people using it. And again, you don't really have any protection if you're using ringless voicemail. Like, you're violating the law. It's as simple as that. Whereas if you use a system like ours, a compliant manual system, you actually have a valid defense, right? And that's what we've always wanted people to understand about our system too, is we want to give you the best possible position to defend yourself if necessary. And
I think that's why we're drawn to you initially in Lead Sherpa, is because of the compliancy, right? And the whole, that's the scary part about all this stuff, is breaking the rules, and having somebody that's up to date and following the rules, on your team, so to speak, is, invaluable. So that's why we got Jason here, guys, because he plays by the rules, which is what we've always liked to do here at, the Nuts and Bolts and Seattle Investors Club and so forth. So,
hey guys, it's Julie here with a quick break from the show to discuss an opportunity some of you may have interest in, which is to work more closely with me. On almost a daily basis, I get calls from investors and brokers, both new and experienced, asking me for guidance or advice. I love helping you guys out, and it keeps me on my toes too. So with that said, I wanted to let you know that I have a private broker coaching community called the VIP Education Community. And the best part is that it's 100% free. That's right, it's free to join. So Whether you're a traditional broker or a broker investor, my VIP education community offers personalized one-on-one coaching from not just me, but also from my experienced broker friends with expertise in all disciplines of real estate and real estate investing. We'll teach and share our modern marketing strategies, our tech and lead generation resources, plus teach you how to identify or offer up opportunities for yourself or for your clients using techniques such as seller financing, lease options, land entitlement deals, BRRRR investing, flipping, multifamily or commercial coaching, whatever you like. We've got it all covered for you. The future of real estate is changing fast, and to stay in the game, it's time to learn about all the options you can offer your buyer and seller clients, as well as, if you want, learn how to use those skills to grow your own real estate portfolio. If you'd like more details about joining my VIP education community, reach out to me at julie@seattleinvestorsclub.com or text me at 206-910-2985 or just send me a Facebook message. My new favorite phrase is community equals confidence. So let's navigate the future of real estate together. Now, back to the show.
Yeah. Okay. So what else is going on with the laws then?
Well, and let me just emphasize too, first of all, I'm not an attorney, so I'm just relaying information that our attorneys have given to me, along with publicly available info. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, verify it. In fact, reach out to me personally, jason@leadsherpa.com, and I'll be happy to share our list of attorneys with you so you can get your own counsel. These are experts in the field. Happy to share their information with you. I'm just putting this information out there, passing it along, and do with it what you will. But I highly recommend, if you guys want to get serious about that, you speak with an attorney. But really, going back to the Facebook decision, that the real effect of that has been that it's now safer than ever to text message, depending on what state you're in, though, right? And so, if done right, if done using a compliant system like Lead Sherpa or any of the other ones that are out there, which we actually have been made aware of a couple that I won't name. They've had a couple different issues where they'll, you click the button once and it actually inadvertently sends out 10 messages at once to 10 different. And so, that was a bug apparently in the system for almost a year. Anybody who is using that system has opened themselves up to a class action lawsuit. Right.
So you're saying that the correct method and through Lead Sherpa, the texts are sent one at a time?
Yeah. It's impossible to send a message unless a human authorizes it to be sent. Every single one. Yeah, even follow-up messaging. So some of them have like an automated follow-up system where it'll, the initial message going out will be a manual send. And, then it queues them up, in line for an automated follow-up 2 weeks later to ask if they still wanted to talk or whatever that follow-up message wanted to be, or whatever you set it to be. If it's going out without human intervention, then the whole system is not compliant. And in fact, most of the systems that we've reviewed out there have some quirk in them like that.
Yeah.
Which technically would yield every message that the users have sent through that system to be non-compliant.
Yeah, I'm a real estate broker as well. I can wonder and think about like some of the systems that are provided to us that have some of these capabilities potentially are not compliant.
Yeah. Yeah. So agents, again, that's a very good thing to talk about, because real estate agents, you're selling a service, right? If you're a real estate investor, you're not selling anything. You're flipping that on its head. You're making an offer to purchase. So it's an important distinction to bring up or to make here. And that's how we've really kind of been able to operate in this space in a compliant way where no one else has been able to, right? Or very few people, very few industries have been able to. And that is, we're not selling anything and we're not using an auto dialer, right? So you combine those two things and now you've got compliance in this niche.
Let's narrow in on the I'm not selling anything issue. What's the issue with selling something or not selling something?
Well, as soon as you're selling something, then the whole plethora of TCPA law now becomes applicable, right? And so, you've got to make sure that you're scrubbing the DNC list, right? So that automatically removes 60% or more of your list that you're trying to contact, and if you're making sales calls, then you also have to have opt-in. If you don't have opt-in permission from the person you're contacting, then you're in violation. So those are the two biggest things.
How do you get opt-in with a cold list that you upload?
Well, you don't need opt-in because we're not selling anything.
The service. Gotcha. Exactly. Okay.
We're not selling a service. We're making offers to purchase property. So technically, according to our attorneys, according to the law, to a strict interpretation of the law, we don't need it.
That is that's bing, bing, bing. Everybody pay attention to what he said there. That's a major distinction that needs to be made, right? Is that people need to understand that particular point to I don't want to use the word get around this, but to be compliant. Can't offer a service, right? You're just offering to purchase or make an offer or whatever. Okay.
Correct.
So the Facebook thing has been the big thing, which has been a positive, we're saying, because it's not put the screws harder to just, like you said, hosting a list or whatever you said, storing lists or something like that. What else? Anything else going on, or you were talking about specific states as well?
That's a good segue. So Florida, they now have the most restrictive TCPA law of the country. In fact, it basically is so restrictive that any system that is being used can technically be defined as an auto dialer. And so there's a very specific way to address that, and we're right in the middle of actually updating our UI to make that compliant. Again, had it reviewed by attorneys, but basically now plaintiffs are arguing that if the system automatically selects the next number in a list, meaning, all right, I upload a list, it's got names, addresses, and phone numbers in it, and maybe I just put them in alphabetical order, right? Or whatever order the system automatically puts them in. Which ours, if you upload it currently, it uploads it into the same order that you had it in your original list. If the system then is able to select the next person in that list to send a message to or to call, then that's considered an auto dialer in the eyes of the new Florida statute or the Florida update, the law that was passed. So basically everything in Florida is now considered to be an auto dialer, and therefore opens up anybody who's making calls either to Florida or in Florida, right? So, I mean, obviously there are absentee owners in Florida who own property. If my market's in Ohio, right, I'm going to be messaging or calling people in Florida occasionally because there are people who live in Florida who own property in Ohio, right?
Right.
So we've got an update on the way it's just going to be a quick switch that you can flip. If you live outside of Florida, you can choose not to call any Florida numbers. We leave it up to you. And then we've got a big UI update that's coming that we already know is going to be, it will protect everybody who operates inside of Florida, because basically what you need to do is manually select each and every person you want to call, not just manually hit that send button. It's in addition to that. So now you have to actually pick, all right, number 3 on the list, number 2 on the list, number 10 on the list. I want to pick these people in the order that I'm choosing in order to stay compliant with this new Florida update. And by the way, Oklahoma last week just passed a very similar law, basically a copycat law. I think it's almost, I don't want to say identical. Obviously there's some changes or some differences, but also Washington has one in the hopper, or so I'm told by our attorneys. And we see it going nationwide at some point, or at least the majority of the states will adopt some form of this. And so what we're doing is we're looking at Florida. We're saying, what do we need to do to stay compliant with Florida, the most restrictive state, and then operate or design to be compliant with that law, and then everything else should fall into place behind it for all the other states that come on.
Does this law just cover texting, or is it phone calls as well?
No. It's think of it as a mini TCPA at the state level. So it's calling, texting, everything, right? So Florida Statute 501.059 8A, or just Google Florida TCPA, and you can learn more about it.
What now? Who's getting sued, and how are they getting caught? Or like, are they trying to come down on like mojo dialers and all that kind of stuff, like that type of stuff, or is it just like individual homeowners are pissed and so they report somebody and that's how it starts?
Well, so yeah, and what it does is, anybody who's using a mojo, for example, could get in trouble. Right. It opens up anybody who's been contacted, anybody who's contacted somebody to a class action. So if you and Joe both separately, you didn't know each other, got contacted by one of these, you live in Florida, and you decided that, you're unhappy about it, you get together and create a class action. And you go look at any company out there that's contacted multiple people and potentially bring a class action suit against them. We're designing a system and have already designed a system to be compliant with national law, and we're very close to releasing our version of that for Florida as well. So yeah, it will affect anybody who is operating inside of Florida potentially. So certainly be careful.
All right, guys. I mean, this is just one of those things. You get a lot of, there's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of cowboys out there telling you like, oh, I do not call. I call them anyways. Right. You have to decide, you're going to call them or not call them. I've always been too chicken to do anything like that. I'm a compliant type of person myself, but it's, you don't really hear about these cases. Maybe I'm not paying attention to hear about it, but I don't want to beat it down here forever and ever and ever. So we know that the message, everybody who's listening, is that lead Sherpa here is, if that's part of your business model as an investor, is paying attention of all that for you. They're not your mama. They're not your attorney, but probably the best or one of the best options out there. I don't know what's all out there. We just speak to Jason here. If you want to start using text messaging or ramp that up for your business. So let's move past all. Is there anything else you want to add on top in regards to the legal?
Well, I'll just say we've sent billions of messages, and I can count on one hand the number of problems that customers that we have brought to my attention, and not a single one of them has been seen all the way through to any kind of a verdict in the case to set new case law. They all get settled because the attorneys on the other side look at our system and understand that that it's going to be problematic to prove what they need to in order to get the case resolved in their favor.
I think, not that I'm not a lawyer either, but isn't the word intent? So if somebody using Lead Sherpa, their intention is to be compliant. I mean, as a defense, I would say. I mean, I know you need to know your own business, but kind of seems like, I don't know.
Intent in the eyes of the law, at least in this case, I don't know that would hold a lot of water. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. All that matters is what actually happened and what system was actually being used. So it's pretty black and white. Is it compliant or not?
Right. So I actually know probably a bunch of people that use Mojo, right? They need to stop. People that I care about or that are in my inner circle.
I'm not telling anybody to stop any kind of marketing. In fact, there are people inside of our system who say, you know what, I'm willing to take that risk.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And so, it's a risk reward decision that each individual investor needs to make for themselves. I have some very high level operating investors who, we're talking like really some of the best in the country who are in Florida, and they're willing to take that risk.
What is the fine or whatever if you get sued? Or is
$500? It's $500 per violation, which adds up very, very quickly. Obviously, if there's a class action or whatever, but it very rarely gets to that point. Especially again, if you're using a system that is compliant, most plaintiffs will be willing to negotiate, right, when they see what they're dealing with on the other side. Yeah. Actually, both sides are willing to negotiate to just get it closed out rather than seeing it through, a 2-year, 3-year legal battle. Nobody wants to go through that anyway.
Gotcha. Let's move on a little bit to Lead Sherpa and maybe some of the unique features or services that are offered inside Lead Sherpa real quick so people can understand what that is. Maybe tell us what Prop Stack is and, being able to maybe text directly from your skip trace account and all that jazz. What is there some unique features that people need to know about Lead Sherpa?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about that. I think it's really more important to talk more about what 10DLC is, and that's the newest kind of regulatory hurdle that has come up. If you don't mind, I think we should focus on that, because that's going to be the most interesting and applicable information that we can give to your listeners right now.
Let's do it.
So 10DLC stands for 10-digit long code, and really, I kind of touched on this earlier, but messaging or text messaging, SMS, is not looked at in the same way as a phone call in the eyes of the law. And therefore, these carriers like Sprint, Verizon, AT&T have been given more power or authority to govern the deliverability of these messages. And so there's a governing body called the CTIA, and they've come up with a set of guidelines that really all the carriers have adopted in their own way, but also there's kind of a general set of rules that they've all agreed upon. And 10DLC is one of those things. And so really what that means is every customer now who wants to continue texting has to have a brand verification. They have to register their company. Underneath that, they have to register the campaigns that they're participating in. And then if you don't do those two things, then there's going to be significant message filtering that happens or occurs because of it. So really, we were kind of in the Wild West the last time you guys and I spoke. 10DLC really puts some guidelines around what you can and can't do, and allows the carriers to basically say, all right, we're going to allow your traffic on our network, or we're not. And we're right at the very beginning stages of really seeing how limiting 10DLC can be for people who and systems who are not choosing not to be fully compliant with the new standard or protocol.
What would be some things that they're doing that would not match up with the new standard or protocol once you register your campaign?
Well, once you register, then you get actually more benefit out of it than before. So instead of needing several hundred numbers, if you're a high volume messenger, you might only need the most you would need really would be 49 numbers. And most of our, medium to lower volume users need significantly less than that, because you're now allowed, once you get registered and approved, you can send significantly more messaging through a much lower amount of numbers, or a single number, right? Thousands of messages a day versus, less than 100.
Okay. Well, again, sometimes change is a positive, right? Weeds out the,
It is. Yeah. I mean, we believe that we know we see a path forward here. Again, I still maintain there's a limited lifespan on this. We'll see how it goes, but certainly for the time being, it's working well. And we're actually, as of last week, really testing we rebuilt the system probably for the third time now from the ground up, making sure that we're doing things the right way. And I've got a really kick-ass team of developers now who really understand the right way to build these systems. And the first developer I mentioned earlier on the call, he got me, part of the way there, but we realized pretty quickly once I brought in some real professional developers, a new head engineer, understood that we needed to kind of start over. And so that's why I said from the ground up. But yeah, so we've got that figured out. 10DLC now it's definitely here. We're seeing examples of filtering started to happen already, and we see a path forward. So it's challenging, but it's exciting at the same time.
That is. Do you have any clients that are not real estate investors? I mean, I imagine your service would be valuable to other types of businesses or politicians.
Yeah, I mean, it's designed specifically for real estate. So it would be kind of a hack to come in and use it for another purpose. I know in the past there's been a small handful of people who have requested access, and we've vetted them out. I'm not going to talk about what industries they are, because it's really a case by case exception that we make, and it's not something that we recommend. In fact, we turn down almost anybody who wants to use it who's not using it in the way that it was designed to be used.
Gotcha. Well, what else? Is there anything else before I ask you a few last questions that you feel is important that we let people know about today?
Yeah, I mean, I would say really, I'm just kind of looking over my notes here. The biggest thing is outside of Florida currently, SMS really is the safest channel after that Facebook ruling. So it's certainly still alive and doing relatively well. And we see that the effectiveness kind of ramping back up, just like anything, it's cyclical. We see that happen with direct mail, with calling, with any marketing channel, really. It ebbs and flows, and we see the potential for it to start flowing again here pretty soon.
Awesome. And remind us one more time, just briefly, what exactly the Facebook thing was. One more time, what was that big deal?
Well, basically, they just ruled that the mere capacity to store a list for dialing, that's not sufficient to make or define a system as an auto dialer. And so that opened up basically a lot of systems that were previously considered or in a gray area to considered to be an auto dialer that took that argument away. And so people were more than free to go out and use these dialing systems to market.
Awesome. Okay, good stuff. Anything else? Or I'm going to ask you a couple of questions because you've got the good stuff.
Go for it.
I'm going to ask you just some basics for those that are listening that, might need a little guidance or something. If you're able to even answer these questions. So for the structure of a SMS campaign, what does that look like? I understand from, talking to you before and stuff, some big no-nos are, for example, you're not going to have like a drip campaign that has the same question going out. We're getting back to the basics here. So you're not going to do you contact 100 people at once? Or, like you said, how do you do that with the distinction is it has to be one at a time? What does that mean? Does that mean you have a virtual assistant clicking a button for hours a day? Is that what that means?
Yeah. I mean, certainly whoever on your team, it could be a virtual assistant. It can be, sales reps are really, really good at it because they understand how to have conversations with potential sellers. But they also burn out the quickest because they hate sitting there clicking buttons, Right. So they're the best people to have that conversation a lot of times. So it's good to have kind of a structure written out that will send them the leads at the right time to have that conversation rather than having them just mindlessly sit there and click away all day long. So
because it literally is a one click at a time.
Correct. Yeah. Is
it so many in an hour? Yeah. What's that look like?
We have a system now where it basically we optimize the ability of the messages to go out, or really the ability of the messages to go out in a way to where it's not possible for a user to kind of burn up or heat up the system anymore. And that's getting better all the time. And so, there's a lot that goes into it. I'm not going to talk about what we've figured out because that's not important for the user. They just need to figure out what they want to say, and we help them with that. And then how to respond back to the properties or the potential sellers that raise their hand and express an interest. Like that's what they need to focus on, right? And so they shouldn't have to worry about like how many messages per minute or per hour can I do, and am I, And so we're trying to build all these. Not trying. We're actively building these safeguards in place to where people don't have to think about that kind of stuff, and they can just focus on what they do best.
And what is it that if somebody was going to get started, do they need to come up with you're going to maybe give them a little guidance, but it has to be unique to them, obviously, because you can't have everybody doing the same stuff. Do they need to have like 10 different introductory texts, to mix it up, or what would people think about as they're getting started?
The more we call them templates, the more templates they have, the better. But we're actually in the process of kind of working on automating some of that too, or most of it, to where they don't even have to think about what to say anymore because we'll help them figure that out. For now, though, the more templates, the better. They absolutely can do a drip campaign. It's just you can't send out that response automatically. What we do is, we have a very simple system where you say, all right, on day 5, follow up with this message. On day 19, give me a phone call reminder, and you just click to call through the system. On day 36, send this message, and so on. So, and you can map that out for 2 years if you want to, right? And it just queues them up and tells you, hey, these 78 people need to be contacted today in one way or another. And again, it's not hard to do. You just click the button again, but it makes it very simple to do that follow-up process. So yeah, I mean, make sure you've got good data, number one, wherever that data source is from, CoreLogic, PropStream, wherever. And then make sure you skip trace to get that high quality data again, which obviously you can do that through our system. We're in the process also of adding additional refinements to our skip trace software, which also has been copied endlessly or relentlessly by other people in this amazing free market. But it's obvious that many people prefer our system because of the amount of volume that we do. And so, we're going to give you back really, really good high quality data and make it really seamless as far as integrating back into the system and able to be used or contacted. So
once you lists, people aren't pulling lists, their contact lists they're pulling their data for skip tracing you can get through Lead Sherpa. That's the whole point. Use high quality lead data. But as far as list pulls for, uploading homeowner lists and so forth, you guys do that, or do you guys find that PropStream is of good quality info?
Yeah, PropStream, CoreLogic, Privy is another one that we really actually like quite a bit. In fact, we're going to be doing a little bit of a partnership with them.
Who's that?
So check out Privy, Privy. Scott Fall is the founder there, and they do really some amazing work. They have really good full MLS access across a significant number of markets across the country as well, which that's a recent problem that PropStream has faced. They've actually had to abandon some of those relationships with MLSs that they previously had. And so, but Privy really allows you to dig in and get that core base layer property data that you can then push over and then add that skip trace, append to it and get that high quality phone data, which is what you need. Then you push that over, again, with just a click of a button. That'll go onto PropStack, which then will, append further data onto that, which would be like, 3-bed, 2-bath, X amount of square feet, however big the lot is, what's it zoned, a picture of the property, all that good stuff.
And PropStack is your product,
correct. And so, you can start to layer on things like pre-foreclosure data or absentee data or vacant data or lien data. And you throw all these different lists into the system and just let it sort it out. And then you start to see, overlap or commonalities between, all right, well, between these 7 lists that I just uploaded, there are 63 different properties that have 4 or more indicators of distress attached to them. Like, all right, 123 Main Street, I can see is a vacant property that has pre-foreclosure information on it, that has several liens, that's a vacant property. Okay, there's a higher likelihood of that property being potentially sold to you versus, another property that has no distress indicators at all whatsoever attached to it. Now, that's just one way to kind of get more laser targeted onto your lists.
Can you pull a probate list off of Privy?
Probate list off of Privy. I do not believe that you can.
Feel like PropStream is saying or has said that you can pull probate off there somehow, but I haven't checked myself.
The best probate lists really are the ones that you generate yourself locally. So, go to your local newspaper where they post those obituaries, and they will show the address of the person that you need to talk to about the estate, and curate your own list that way. That's going to be the most accurate, the most up to date. And most people don't want to take the time to actually curate that list themselves. Once you figure out how to do that, you can step by step that out for a VA or anybody on your team to do and just automate it.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. What else can I ask you before we wrap it down here? How often are investors updating their lists? Are they refreshing those lists every 6 months or what? Or not? If they have MLS, I guess the reason why you'd want to refresh is to see if it's sold, right?
Yeah. And our system will do that automatically for you. So, if you've got all your properties in PropStack, which it's a free service. Like you can go sign up for it today and use it. We don't charge for it. You can select or filter based off of last sold date. And so you can update it as often as you like and filter out, I would recommend doing it every, maybe quarterly, every 6 months, something like that. Some people will say, all right, it's been a year and a half, 18 months since I last updated this list of phone numbers, right? Maybe though, what they'll do is use PropStrack to whittle down or narrow down, filter down to the most likely to sell properties and then refresh that phone data. So you're not refreshing tens of thousands of properties at a time. Maybe it's just a few thousand, right? Or hundreds of thousands or millions, right? That allows you to really focus in on the highest likely to sell properties. And it doesn't cost a whole lot to refresh the phone data there.
What about, do people, I don't even know if this is a thing because I don't do it myself, but can you take that list? I know you can take a list and upload it to Facebook and market directly to people like that, like an email list off a skip trace email list. Is that what people do for Google AdWords? Do you guys know? Can you take a custom list that you've skip traced that has email and phone numbers and upload that to Google AdWords to market straight to people?
You can. The emails are not as accurate as the phone numbers, so that's always, there's an asterisk next to it. Yeah, but you certainly can. You can make a custom audience in Facebook and do the same with phone numbers and emails. I'm not sure how effective that's been in the past, and especially now with the new restrictions on privacy. I think that you probably still can do that, but it's never been something that I've been focused on.
Can you do that with Google AdWords? Do you know?
I'm not sure.
Probably you can. So there's your tip though, guys. If you just heard that where we said asterisks, you're saying that the phone numbers out of the two data points between phone and email, not that they're both not great through Lead Sherpa, but the phone numbers you're saying are the more
highly accurate.
Highly accurate. So when you pull that information and it has like 3 phone numbers, is it the top number? How does that get pulled? Is it usually the top number that's the current most accurate, or what's this? And the others are like related parties, or what?
Yeah. So if you look at the CSV that you would export out once that data has been generated, there's columns going from left to right, right? And so phone number column number 1 is always going to be the best. Or the highest percentage of correct phone numbers from the get-go. So ours goes phone column 1, 2, 3. Other systems will just say phone column 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ours will say, all right, 1, 2, 3, that's probably the person you're looking for. If not, now we've got relative number 1, and then phone column 1, 2, 3 for relative number 1, and then relative number 2, phone column 1, 2, 3 for relative number 2. So you even know the name of the person that you're potentially contacting. Hey, I'm looking for Joe Bauer over here, but Julie, I see that you're Joe's relative, right? I can talk to you intelligently about Joe and not call you Joe, which is what you would be doing if you're using someone else's data.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Yeah, all good stuff, guys. I mean, you got to know this stuff. If you're going to be in this business, you got to know this stuff. I'm seeing if I have any. So what's the difference? So everybody, and we'll wrap it up here. Let me ask 2 final questions. What do you see changing in real estate investing over the next, 12 to 24 months? Not just in regards to, I'm just in general asking you, not necessarily in regards to Lead Sherpa, but do you see any trends or changes, or like you said, TV, maybe it's TV or something like that on the way that people lead generate, or changes in our industry?
Well, it's hard. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball, but it's pretty much a seller's market everywhere right now. And it has been for quite some time. With interest rates going up, again, I don't know how to predict this stuff, but
we're not going to
I wouldn't be surprised if the markets got even tighter than they currently are, because fewer people will be selling because they can't move to a new home. Fewer people will be buying also at the same time, potentially because interest rates are going up. But it seems like there's always going to be a demand issue that's overtaking supply. And so I think prices are going to continue to get pushed up. That's really the long and short of it. And so
how about this idea that I've been thinking about? is the ADU. The zonings are getting changed because of the lack of affordable housing and, lack of space or density issues and stuff like that. So for example, I think Oregon is one state that has got away with single family zoning. So now you can build these dadus in the back. So even though things are getting maybe more expensive and seller market this and that, do you think it's possible that some of these zoning changes might open up the opportunity to actually be able to pay more for the properties if you can, creatively do additions to the property with these dadus and things?
Yeah, absolutely. Or, I mean, if you could take it a step further and really overlay a much higher density zone over the top of a single family area, which is what's happened in Denver.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when I first really got into it, that's really what I specialized in, was finding and identifying these high density zone properties that you could then figure out what the highest and best use of for it would be, rather than the single family that was currently on it. Okay, this is a 9,600 square foot lot. According to the current zoning code now, I mean, I could probably fit 12 units on it if constructed in this manner, right? And so that really can potentially significantly increase the value of a property. It also makes it's kind of like putting a puzzle together, understanding how all that works, and then identifying the developers who are interested in that type of property. It's just one more step in the game, and
one more layer.
And I don't know how that would actually affect prices of. I mean, certainly more people will be able to buy a $300,000 condo than, a $2 million house that would sit on the same lot. But at the end of the day, it's just going to continue to get more competitive, which is going to mean it's going to be harder and harder for your listeners and my customers to find those deals. I don't see a downturn coming. I just don't see it. It's just a simple supply and demand, as I said earlier. And people are waiting for the next 2008, for the next crash.
Yeah.
And I don't see the fundamentals that would be required for that to happen. I don't see those. I don't see that happening anywhere. But, I could be wrong. People make money in an up or down market. So bring it on either way.
Right. All right. Well, let's wrap it up with, what do investors get for users Lead Sherpa? People want to get started using Lead Sherpa today. There's a few free tools there, and there's some paid account stuff. Give us the quick overview on that, and let's see if we can inspire some people to take their game to the next level using Lead Sherpa.
Yeah, just go to leadsherpa.com. You can sign up right there. You don't have to talk to anybody if you don't want to. If you want to have a chat with one of our sales reps, you're more than welcome to. We can answer questions for you. But you can get started using PropStack right away. Just dump a bunch of data in there and, filter it any which way that you like. And then you can skip trace it. Or if you want to start sending text messages, you could level up if you want to. But it doesn't cost anything to get started. Check it out if you like. And, we've got a pretty good onboarding team and a really good knowledge base that'll get you started pretty quickly too. I think most of your listeners are pretty sharp people, so they can figure out how to get going on their own. But we're happy to help.
One question, let's say somebody gets going on this and they type up their messaging that they're going to use, is there do you guys have any type of review, or are they a little bit, I know they could request your help, but do you guys flag bad messages? Yes. Okay. So if I went in there and I was doing my own thing and I typed in something that's going to be a bad message or get me in trouble, you guys would be like, nope, can't do that.
Yeah, we've got some guardrails in place and definitely more coming too. So, follow the best practices that we've laid out. It's pretty easy once you just take a minute to just read the single article that references what you're talking about. But certainly we're there to help, and we can hopefully, I know that we are actively preventing people from making mistakes, and it's only getting better from here on out too.
Awesome, Jason. Well, we really appreciate you coming back to visit with us. And we'll be calling you back again, checking in again. How about that? Maybe we won't wait 2 years next time. So
sounds good. There's going to be a lot happening over the next 9 months, I would say, as far as how 10DLC gets implemented and whether or not other systems are able to figure it out. Like we hope that we will, or that we are confident that we'll be able to. So, let's plan on talking again before the year's up, maybe.
Sounds good. We'll do so. All right, everybody, we're going to wrap it today. Again, if you enjoy the deep dives that we do, I think we're known for doing these deep dive podcasts. Give us a like or whatever. What do they say, Joe? I don't know. Hit the button, smash it, whatever you say, 5-star review. I don't know. All that jazz. We'd love it if you could. If you like this one today, give us a comment below. And don't forget, you can join us every Thursday from 11:30 to 12:30 at our weekly free virtual meetup. Just grab the Zoom link. If you're not a member of the Seattle Investors Club Facebook page, you can jump on there for free. You can join our meetup.com Seattle Investors Club group there and get notified of things. We invite you to do so. And lastly, if you want to get all the recordings, we record all our meetups every week. And that's available for everybody for $220 a year to get access to those recordings. Or if you show up, better yet, you show up and you join the conversation, then it's always free. So look forward to seeing you guys in the future, and you too, Jason. And Joe, where can everybody find the details of today's podcast?
Yeah, you can get to all the show notes and links that we've taken from the show today at seattleinvestorsclub.com/160. That's seattleinvestorsclub.com/160.
Sweet. Thanks, everybody. Bang, bang, bang. See you next time. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to the Seattle Investors Club podcast. If you have questions that you'd like to have answered on the show, shoot us an email at info@seattleinvestorsclub.com. Now go out, take that action, and build that real estate business. Thanks for listening.